Day off today, then things intensify, and oh my goodness, we got a game week. Business picking up like a mofo tomorrow. Let's get into it in the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize every time. Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top two and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days. Opinions to give. We got takeaways. If it's up,
Welcome to the locker room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 610 and on the Odyssey app. Off day for the Houston Texans today. Tomorrow, business is really going to pick up. We're actually going to be a week away from an actual game. We are going to be a build up to who's going to start the first preseason game. Is it going to be Davis Mills? Is it going to be CJ Stroud? That's gonna get the internet in a tizzy. And we're going to get to kind of lay out the whole outlook of where exactly the Texans are and what they're looking like. I asked on Twitter and on the Loopholes Facebook page. Shout out to the Loopholes. If you listen, you are one. If you had any questions about the Texans at this point, heading into the off day tomorrow and heading into being a week away from game week. Couple of the questions that I got, I'll read. I'll also read your questions in here. Brian Lucky asks, why not sign one of the top free agent running backs? My question would be for what? What do the Texans need another running back for at this point? You got Dameon Pierce, you got Devin Singletary. Do you want him to bring in Dalvin Cook? Do you want to pay Dalvin Cook? Do you want to give Dalvin Cook all of these carries? Like what is the point of Dalvin Cook? That would be my question to your question. Troy Napadalong, forgive me if I didn't pronounce that right, asks, above average production from running backs to open things up for wide receivers, or precept adjustments in scheme to move the change. If they do the same thing, sorry, too much of a deal breaker for me. So I guess he's talking more so about the running backs opening things up for the wide receivers and kind of trying to explain himself. Matthew Graves asks, do you think the Texans go after a pass-catching running back threat or stick with the current running backs? We're getting a lot of running back questions. I think Devin Singletary is a pass-catching threat. They're using Dameon Pierce a little bit more than you would think as well when it comes to throwing passes out there. Scott Garlington asks, have any reporters passed out from the heat? The answer would be no. John McClain gets plenty of shade. So he's been fine, but I do worry about the heat sometimes. Paul Shelton Ballard III asks, how many fullbacks / tight ends will Houston carry on the roster? I think that's an interesting question. You had the Hairston injury. Tight ends kind of banged up right now. I do wonder if Quintariano comes back tomorrow. I would be on the lookout for that during game week. But Andrew Beck's going to be a fullback / tight end. So do they look at that as keeping 4 tight ends if they keep 3, or do they keep 4 extra? Dalton Schultz is safe. Quintariano's safe. Beck is safe. It could be anywhere from 1 fullback and 4 tight ends, or 1 fullback and 3 tight ends, because Andrew Beck can line up in the slot. Let's go to the Twitter part of this, and I appreciate everyone for coming through. I promise I'll get to your questions for sure. Before we do that, though, let's hear from Tank Dell. Tank Dell, the U of H Coug, a lot of hype with Tank Dell. The wide receiver position seems to be set. It feels like you know who your 6 receivers are going to be. Noah Brown, Robert Woods, John Mechie, Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, and Nico Collins look like they're going to be your 6. Let's hear Tank Dell talk about the first-year guys, specifically himself, John Mechie. I consider him a first-year guy because he's never played, and Xavier Hutchinson. Here was Tank Dell talking about that.
I start with Mitch. Mitch, that's my guy. Me and Mitch, we done built a good bond, a strong bond. That's my guy. We on the field, we talking. Off the field, we talking. He telling me things to help me. I'm critiquing him. He critiquing me. And then we just having fun. We joking with each other. So we just building that type of relationship. And X just a funny guy, man. He willing to work wherever you put him. You know, he move around from X, Z, F. Everywhere, wherever you want to put him, he's ready. And he's willing to work too, you know, coming in, strong-minded, ready to work, get in the playbook.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what about these guys that's really, I don't know if maybe it's just a practice thing. And yes, we in here talking about practice, but it does kind of feel like these guys are lining up in multiple places, which is a beautiful thing to see. There was talk about, is Mech a slot guy? Is Tank a slot guy? Are there going to be just guys lining up in the slot? Those guys are lining up all over the place, specifically Tank Dell. Tank Dell is lining up all over the place. So I would keep an eye on those wide receivers because it's not so much like a competition. We're used to kind of seeing wide receivers on that, like fighting for roster spots. I don't think that is the case right now. I think these wide receivers right now, they're really fighting to just fit in. Unless something crazy happens, God, I'll knock on wood there. And unless, they decide to upgrade and maybe bring someone in, we have a pretty good idea for the first time in a while, and it's kind of a rarity, but we have a pretty good idea of what the wide receivers are going to be. It's just going to be a matter of how Bobby Slowick decides to use these different pieces and where these pieces line up. Because right now it seems like you have a pretty diverse skill set at wide receiver. You have a situation where I think your only one-trick pony is Nico Collins. I think Nico Collins is just a deep threat, and you need a deep threat. But I think Nico Collins right now is the deep threat. I think all these other guys are superior to Nico Collins when it comes to intermediate routes, even Noah Brown, which is kind of surprising. It does seem like Nico's putting in extra work to, improve his route running. You've seen him kind of picking the brain of John Mechie on the side. You've seen him picking the brain of Derek Stingley and Steven Nelson. But he's having a little bit of trouble getting off on the line of scrimmage, off of the line of scrimmage. He's made some plays. And I know there's people who will say, Nico Collins is doing well. Yeah, well, when you're only, running deep routes in practice, and we're not seeing all the other stuff, yeah, he's going to stick out. But I think Nico right now is kind of the one-trick pony, and the rest of these guys seem to have a little bit better grasp of, being intermediate threats and running the entire route tree. So I asked for questions on Twitter about going live, and I accidentally said Eastern time because I'm not used to doing I'm not used to this whole time zone thing. There's people from other spots that watch this. So Lopez decided to be a smartass. My co-host John Lopez on the Odyssey app, the OG, decided to be a smartass, which I always say is better than being a dumbass. So props to Lopez, and you can see the Lopez jokes there. Dream Apple asks though, at Dream Team Apple 1, talk about the tight ends. Way too many to keep track of on the Texans roster. I just want Dalton Schultz to be healthy and ready to play well week 1 at Baltimore. And I want Brevin Jordan to step up in year 3. 2 lousy seasons so far, and now more injuries. Let's go, Brevin. I don't even know if Brevin makes the team. I think he's going to have a good preseason. He's going to have to show he can stay healthy. He might be able to sneak his way on the practice squad, but at this point, I don't know that Brevin Jordan is a lock to make the team. Dakota Chandler asked how the center position is panning out so far in camp. Meh. I mean, it's not anything overly sticking out. I think that's more of like a preseason thing. Questenberry's been with most of the ones, most of the time. But man, when do you expect the starting QB to be announced, and would it be upset if Mills edges out Stroud? The starting quarterback for the preseason game, I would assume Monday or Tuesday. For the regular season, probably about August 21st, something like that. Cully says, how about another wide receiver? Not sure that you need that. Travis asks, has Mechie been doing any team drills or just individual? He's been doing everything. And he's actually stuck out a little bit as well. Speaking of John Mechie, I'm just going to say this. Tune in tomorrow to In the Loop at 11 o'clock. You might like what you hear. That's all I'm going to say. You might like what you want to hear. Jacob says, I want to like Nico. I'm just fighting it. No, I'm fine with Nico either way. I don't have any predetermined distaste or intrigue for Nico Collins. I just think he kind of is what he is at this point. Devin asks, wouldn't be surprised end of year Del Mechie and Hutch emerge as the top three. I think you got to put Woods up there if he stays healthy, just because he's kind of reliable. 58 catches last year coming off the torn ACL. But yeah, I could see those three guys being productive. Hutchinson is really someone worth keeping an eye on. Will you still be more surprised if the Texans make the playoffs and the Astros winning the World Series after the JV trade? Yes, I would. I've laid out, the last 10 years and teams that have gone from, 3 or 4 wins to 9 or 10 in the NFL. It happens all the time. It was the Giants last year. The year before that, it was the Eagles. The year before that, there's the Bengals and a few other squads. Like, you can go back 10 years. I think the Astros, this was more of a survival move. I don't think it was a thriving move. When they traded for Verlander the first time in 2017, they were 11.5 up in the AL West. When they traded for Greinke in 2019, they were 7.5 up. Right now, last I checked, haven't seen the standings. I think they're a half game back of the Rangers. So, yeah, I think the Astros are going to have a battle to get in the playoffs, and then hopefully they can flip the switch. They definitely have a chance now. They have a much better chance with Verlander. And it was a necessary trade. But I have not seen that. Ronald says there was a story of Dan Patrick arguing with Deshaun. Haven't heard a damn thing about that. I'm going to have to check that one out in a little bit for sure. Austin, Landry, are you out on Mills? New coaching, new scheme. Can it make a difference? I think Mills can be a good backup quarterback. And that's not a knock on him. What happened to Davis Mills was he came into a situation that was unprecedented. He probably wanted to go back to college at Stanford, and he told us as much, and David Shaw told us as much when he joined the show. But they had that the COVID stuff going on, and they didn't even know if they were going to have a season or not. And I think that's part of the reason you're seeing the Pac-12 just unravel right now. Because of the way that whole thing was or wasn't handled. And Davis Mills ended up coming to the NFL. He ended up being a 3rd-round pick. He had a good rookie year, and there was some hope. But a 3rd-round pick being a backup quarterback, that's not shameful at all. As a matter of fact, that's a good time to get a backup quarterback. But I think along the way, when you're replacing the guy that people immediately think is your franchise quarterback for the long term, I think sometimes you just develop some animosity. And when you're following an organization and you're a fan of an organization, or you're passionate about sports, which I'm sure most of you that are in here about, you just kind of get in a situation where you're hoping that he can be something that maybe that's just not realistic for him to be. So I think we're kind of like equaling things out here. Willis is saying, I guess Cleveland fans are pissed Dan Patrick ripped on Watson and called the franchise a dumpster fire. Okay. I have no idea what was going on there. Deshaun Watson is arguing with Dan Patrick. Deshaun said his problems caused the media. Crazy you hear this. I thought Deshaun, if you're talking about his media availability a couple of weeks ago, I actually thought they kind of I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I kind of thought people ran with that and kind of misunderstood what he was saying, but I'll check that out. Cebu says, if Stroud doesn't have it, would you rather see Mills start the last games of the season? No. If Stroud doesn't have it and it's the end of the season, I want to see some reps for Stroud. I want to see him get his experience in. I want to see what his ceiling is. Again, I'm not the guy that's going to sit here and say I think CJ Stroud's a franchise quarterback. I think it would be nice. I never thought that leading up to the draft, but I do think there's more to gain by putting him out there than Mills. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think what we've heard from the coaches, what we've heard from the players, I think we have a decent grasp of that. Derek, do you think the Texans have quality depth at running back? No. Could they? Yes. Have I seen enough right now for me to tell you yes? Absolutely not. I want to see how the committee works with Pierce and Devin Singletary, and I want to see how Pierce looks in year 1 or year 2 as compared to year 1. But the third running back, and sometimes you like to have 4 running backs, very, very up in the air. Mike Bell, he seems to have a little bit of something, and I'm interested to see what Valladay looks like in the preseason. But those are going to be things that y'all know how preseason is. There's always like a running back hero. I think we can get a grasp of that. And the other thing about the running back position is a lot of quality backs get cut, and you have that opportunity. Colts sign Amari Rodgers, good for them. He wasn't going to get to play here. He's been there before, so they kind of know him. I know it's a new system, but I think that Chris Ballard probably likes him. I think he was actually pretty popular there for some reason. I don't remember the exact reason. Where would you rank the defense out of 32 teams? I think if they have a top half of the league defense, I think you should be thrilled. I would say they're probably going to be a top. I think they can get in the top half. I think they can get in the top 16. Going to be a lot of blitzing. You got a really good secondary. You got some intriguing options in the front 7. You got a division where you have Ryan Tannehill, Anthony Richardson, and then Jacksonville and whatever the hell they're going to do. I think one time you play Jacksonville, they're not going to have their starting left tackle. So I think because of that, the defense, like as far as ranks, could get in the top half. That's really like my realistic expectation. I think that's fair. Kevin says Stroud is beating out Mills tomorrow. It's going to be interesting to find out who they're starting in the preseason. And we're going to be a week away from the game. I don't know how they're looking at that. They're still rotating reps, but the immediate headline is going to be, and I'll damn sure do a video on it. Whoever starts preseason game 1, I would anticipate that if it's Stroud, I could see him starting again. If it's Mills, I could see Stroud starting game 2. So if Mills starts preseason game 1, I think we're going to get Stroud in preseason game 2. Jacob, I like the idea of a versatile wide receiver group. I hope we have 3 different slot wide receivers in the game. They do. Mechie, Tank can line up in the slot. Woods can line up in the slot. There's a lot of Noah Brown can line up in the slot. There's a lot of guys that can line up in the slot, but they're lining up all over the place. There's not any like set thing. How do you think they split up the QB reps versus the Patriots? Even split between the 3 QBs, or do you think they give more reps to one guy or the other? I would say maybe a quarter each in game 1, and then Case just take it home in the second half. I could easily see that happen. Case Keenum heroics at the end. But I would say probably a quarter each and then a half each maybe in day 2 or in game 2. Jets TGTX is Christian Harris and To'o with Will Anderson going to be a good combo. That's a trio, I think, sir. I'm being Will actually guy there. I don't know if To'o is ready to like be a starter yet. Again, preseason will give better idea. He's been fine. But Blake Cashman, Harris, they've been the best linebackers up to this point. What happens tomorrow? Birdie's asking. Just be ready for 11 o'clock. Might hear the voice of someone that you haven't quite heard. on the Odyssey app. Download the Odyssey app right along. I know I'm kind of grimacing a lot. I'll just go full disclosure and pull it back. I actually had like a little back, had to get something taken out of my back 2 days ago after the show. So kind of went in and dug it out. So it was just a little in and out type of thing, but damn, it hurts like crazy. But you know, kind of is what it is at this point. It's grind time, but I will say I'm a firm believer in there's no minor surgery, for sure. So appreciate everyone for coming through. Tomorrow we'll go the full hour. We're gonna react to what happens in day 7. We're gonna be a week away from game week. The day before, 2 more days of practice before another off day. Tavis says Hardo, Landry, definitely not. Definitely not. I got them staples though. Jacob says, I think people are looking too much into the Stroud struggles. The first couple of practices, he was doing well. I think the coaching staff is challenging him to do more. He handles it. I would tell you to go listen to Bobby Sloak's Slowick's comments about that. He actually factored in the heat, which I thought was interesting. We talked about that yesterday. I'm fine, man. It's just a little, it's like right here. It's probably like that big. It's like a little like lipoma. It was like pressing on the back and the rib. Was there for a while. Someone says, Wade is a guest coming on here or ITL tomorrow. The guest is coming on ITL tomorrow. And that's all I can say. I think you can read between the lines. I think you can figure it out. Maybe. I believe in you. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Subscribe, like, right along. Going to be a really, really fun week build up till we get final games. Pre-game show after every game right here. Best pre-game show in town. Gonna have the home game after that. If you're out there, holler at me. Come say hey in the parking lot or whatever. And remember, when it comes to this Texans stuff, we are all in this together. Appreciate you.
Every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localized every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too. Plugged in daily digital.